All right, guys, it is time for what I believe is becoming an annual tradition around here in Ship Chasing. I bust out the Google Sheets and we do a Dynasty rookie mock draft. This year, we're bringing in some of our friends. We got JJ, the late round QB, Blair from RotoViz, and a new face around here, Ron Stewart. You guys might know him hanging around in the Ship Chasing VIPs, also his terrific YouTube channel. We are going to do a 12-team mock. Each of us are going to have 2 teams, and we're going to go through it. And of course, yes, we will find out who is this year's Jalin Hyatt, all tonight on Ship Chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar Alpha Play Chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally at this point. You're right.
All right, I know Blair's no stranger to the Ship Chasing, but Ron and JJ, I believe this is your guys' first time on Ship Chasing somehow. JJ, have you been on before?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I do shows with each of you individually a decent bit, but I don't know. I don't know if I've been on or not.
When
you seem excited to be on it, I'm so.
When you jumped on before the show, I was like, I mean, we've definitely done pods together. I was like, this might be the first time I've done video with you. Maybe you've never been on Ship Chasing. That's awesome.
Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, JJ, I will say you are the exact type of person that I feel so bad asking to do a show at night. And this isn't saying you're a boomer, but I do just feel like you're like, dude, I'm in bed by 10. Like, why are you asking me to be up?
Yeah, I mean, look,
10:30.
This is past my bedtime for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I appreciate you doing it. And then Ron, on the other hand, just revealed he was up till 3 a.m. playing video games. So you're just getting started tonight.
Yeah, I fell asleep on this couch last night. I truly hate to say it. MLB The Show came out last night and I couldn't put it down. So I cannot relate to the,
East Coast
going to bed early, everything. Yeah, East Coast dads. I don't think I fit that demographic.
Awesome. Blair, how are you doing? Normally, I feel like we have a guitar in the background. You got the bookshelf going today, though.
That's right. Change it up a little bit today. Wanted to feel smarter for this mock draft, so break out the bookshelf.
There you go. Yeah, I will not be able to question any of your selections because of the rich mahogany-bound books behind you is how it works. Pat, how are you doing? The chat was mentioning it. You did an awesome podcast with JJ earlier. Everyone should check that out. What's going on in your world?
Yeah, good prep for this podcast because we talked through the rookie class. We hyped up Izzy Abanikanda, which was pretty good timing to do that.
Yeah,
kind of last call for the hype, and we got it in. Yeah, so everyone should check that pod out. It was a good one.
I've been laughing about the Izzy stuff because I'm famously in a million underdog slow drafts, and I've been logging into mine today in like 17th round, and he's gone the pick before me now. Like every time I look, and I'm like, this JJ and Pat Steve, it's coming in hot right now.
The Pro Day steam is really
Pro Day helps too. Yeah. Gretch, how are you doing?
Good. I have been, with all the Omni stuff and everything else, I've been talking about how I am way behind on the prospect stuff. I'm the sixth man here, but I got up to speed today with your guys' pod with JJ's awesome prospect guide with all the RotoViz stuff. Read a Blair Andrews piece today. So yeah, I've been crunching for this draft today. Last minute prep for my first mock draft.
Gretchen, I think I'll be good through like the first 5 or 6 picks, and then I'm gonna start looking for the next Jalin Hyatt. I think is my strategy for tonight.
I'm afraid I'm gonna be the Jalin Hyatt guy this year.
You know what? It's gonna be shooting fish in a barrel though for us if we're trying to find late round tight ends. I mean, this is the year to try to unearth a late round prospect. But this is how this is gonna go. Because we want to make sure it's like a 12-team mock draft, which most of you will be doing when you're doing your dynasty drafts. We are each going to have 2 selections in the round. And to make it fair, we will each have 1 selection in the top 6 picks and 1 selection in the back half of the draft. I have used the incredibly powerful model to determine this. It is called random.org. Right here, I am going to get Ron. How many times should I randomize this for? This is for picks 1 through 6.
Give me 14.
14. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 14.
JJ just said it's past his bedtime. You want me to randomize this 14 times? All right. 1, 2,
Oh, I didn't know it takes
3,
so long.
Just thrilling, thrilling content.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, JJ did get rewarded from
come
this.
on.
The Influencer 101 right here. JJ, how many times do I randomize this for the back half of the draft?
2.
2. Smart. 1 and 2. Pat is going to have the 1-7, Gretch the 1-12, and I will get the Google sheet going. This is a special service I offer for mock drafters. I will let you know my rates, but JJ, let's just get right off to it. The 101, we are doing a super flex tight end premium rookie draft. This was the format invented by David Kitchen, so we do need to pay our respects to him. But JJ, the 101,
It's part of his dream.
the floor is yours. Who's the 101 in this class?
Pat and I actually had a little bit of a discussion about this on his show where, you could maybe make the argument in a superflex league to go the quarterback route, even though Bijan's on the board. But I think that I will be going with the best prospect, running back prospect since Saquon Barkley in Bijan Robinson with this 101 pick.
And I heard you guys talking about a little bit and how, in hindsight, maybe this would start to look silly. Do you think if we had more of a locked and loaded 101, like if we had a Trevor Lawrence or a Joe Burrow, do you think this would be a harder conversation?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it would be more difficult for sure. I personally, whenever I'm building my dynasty rosters, my superflex rosters, I'm in leagues with a lot of you guys, and I'm building through quarterback because of the way that they just, number one, can appreciate in value, but also their currency in superflex leagues. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think I mentioned this to Pat. I wouldn't be surprised if a Stroud or a Bryce Young is ranked ahead of or close to Bijan entering year 2 if one of those guys blows up in year 1 or has a good season. It just seems like at this point in time, Robinson is just so bust proof that it feels pretty easy to click that button with him at 101.
I was listening to your guys' pod today, and I felt like you guys were making a decent case for quarterback because everything you just said about it being a value store. I mean, this is a pretty good quarterback class. They don't have to do a ton to maintain, like, year 2 startup value for like Lance and Fields was still like second round picks in startups, right? Like, we are at a place right now with the quarterback position. I mean, Stroud's a good prospect, right? I mean, I think, is there something to say if you're not in a win now roster, you probably shouldn't be going like Bijan, because good running back prospects can bust.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's like a horrible like if I'm not ready to take on Robinson, I think it's fine to just get as much as you can out of a trade for that. I don't think that you necessarily have to force the issue with one of the quarterbacks. I can tell you, like, I published my rankings today on my Patreon, my Superflex rankings, and I included rookies this month with the update. And right now, Robinson's like a late first in Superflex, late first round pick in startups, and then I have Stroud and Bryce Young as like a late second. So like, it's not like, of course there's a value difference there, but it's not like it's so dramatic that like I would fault someone for wanting to go that direction. But because you're sitting there where we know the 101 has a value of X and the value and 102 is X minus Y, you might as well try to get that difference in a trade instead of just forcing the issue with the quarterback.
Is there anyone on the panel who would not be taking Bijan 101? Crickets?
I think I might make a case for Stroud because I do think I think obviously this is not an attack on JJ. I think everyone is saying Bijan is 101. I think there is something to be said about we've been really fortunate with the really good running back prospects over the last 5 or so years. Jonathan Taylor's hit, Saquon Barkley has hit, Breece Hall hit. There were other prospects. Maybe they weren't as good at the time, but there was the year that Bishop Sankey was the top dynasty running back. Obviously, he wasn't on Bijan Robinson's level as a prospect, but we've made mistakes further back into the history. We've had less of running back.
Mark Ingram was a really, really highly regarded prospect.
Trent Richardson, man.
Richardson.
Yeah.
Injuries can happen. Like Bijan Robinson could land in a bad spot too, especially pre-draft. There's possibilities that he could land in a spot that just, I mean, there are tough spots for running back. Breece Hall just showed that you can kind of overcome even Zach Wilson at quarterback if you're good enough. But I think I would make a case that, like, from a long-term dynasty perspective, that CJ Stroud, if we really are pretty confident he's going to go one-on-one, we know the draft capital is 100% there. I mean, Bijan could fall a little bit too compared to, we're all thinking top half of the first round potentially for him, right? But he could be end of the first round. He could be second round still, probably, right? I mean, there's reasons that his value could not be as strong by year 2 and year 3. I think you can make the case for the likely 101 overall quarterback. I don't know.
I think he's going to do the most for your team this year, and he'll be worth the most of every rookie in this class probably next year. And it's at a position where, like, Austin Eckler is going to fall way off in value, like redraft value. Christian McCaffrey is going to fall way off in redraft value. Saquon Barkley is going to fall way off. So he gives you this really, really rare opportunity. I think if you're competing, obviously you take Bijan, but I think even if you're kind of like in the mix, because you can. But
is it just that there's no other RB1? Like, he has to be the dynasty RB1 because there is no other option for that, right?
And his prospect profile is a beautiful thing. Like, he's coming along at the right time, but he also is that guy as a prospect profile. I think if he misses, he's like Joe Mixon or Leonard Fournette would be like a really bad outcome in terms, but those guys were like pretty productive. And then they never were superstars, is my point. Like, I think his downside risk is like still not that bad.
The one thing, speaking of downside risk, like if you look historically at startup ADP and rookie running backs that get drafted this high in a startup draft, like first 2 rounds, first 3 rounds, I mean, they generally all appreciate in value year over year. I mean, it's a even guys who don't do very well still are highly sought after. I mean, you can make the same argument for high end wide receivers too, but when they're this good from a prospect standpoint, they very rarely will lose that value year over year. So
there's more of a value store than I'm thinking there is. That's a good point.
You kind of made this point to me with Pitts, Ben. You got me like, and it was a good point. And Pitts appreciated in value after his rookie year a lot.
Right.
You know, even though after the next year we were like, oh no. But they will, that between the rookie and the sophomore year, I think Bijan's value is going up. It's going up.
Yeah, you could see a scenario too. I mean, we know that quarterback is like, I like Stroud too, but like, we know that quarterback is a relative crapshoot at times, and that like people just get turned off by quarterbacks very, very quickly. I mean, we're seeing it with like Trey Lance right now. And so, you know, I think it's the safest bet is Bijan.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the other thing, we can talk more about this as we continue making picks, but I mean, these guys, Stroud and Young, are not even necessarily going to give you a lot of fantasy production in year 1 since they don't really run the ball a lot.
Right.
So
that's my issue with Stroud.
It'd be easy for people to sour on them after a disappointing year 1 if they're not really good passers.
Well, they don't show the ceiling that they can compete with like a Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts in scoring long term. If they're just a back end QB1 for their whole career, that's not right. That's not sexy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sexy, speaking of rushing, speaking of just hanging dong.
Go for it.
Go
for it.
Number 2, AR-15, bitches. Come on down. You guys could talk about your CJ Stroud. You want to talk about not having consequences with a pick? It's in a mock draft in a Google sheet in March, baby. We're taking Anthony Richardson, sky high ceiling, best athlete we've seen at the quarterback position of all time. Come on, Anthony Richardson, poke holes in my selection.
I'm just glad my 106 is off the board before I'm up at 106.
Wow. I mean, honestly, like, I don't think anyone should do this, because you should take Bijan Robinson. But like, if you were going to make the argument, Ben, that you were making, I think it's with Anthony Richardson, because that's the guy you can't get. That's the guy you can't go to Josh Allen, you know, or Jalen Hurts' owner and say, I want him. It's very difficult to get those guys in trade. He at least gives you a tiny, tiny sliver of that potential outcome. Stroud, I feel like you're getting, I don't know, like maybe a Dak Prescott or something. Like, it's actually, you can go to the trade market and find that guy.
Ron, where are you at on how you would approach the 2-3 spot here with these quarterbacks in Superflex.
I actually have I made a little cheat sheet of rankings to the side here. Anthony Richardson was my 102 as well.
Let's go.
I agree too. Like CJ Stroud and even Bryce Young, they kind of come off as like Tua-ish type assets, like sort of like Jared Goff early on. They could definitely be good, but they almost have to realize that ceiling and that value ceiling in Dynasty to get into the first round. You have to thread such a thin needle as a passer with them. Like they have to sort of challenge for like 35 plus passing touchdowns to get into that difference making quarterback production. With Anthony Richardson, he could be a league average passer, and I really don't think he's as raw as sort of everybody says with Anthony Richardson. I know the completion percentage isn't great, and he kind of comes off as like maybe not Josh Allen-ish, but one of these guys who are projects, right? Like a Will Levis. But I think the difference is that he doesn't take terrible sacks. I've been messing around with EPA lost on sacks recently, and Will Levis had like minus 23.4 this year, which is like awful. He's just like taking bad sacks, and you have a guy like Anthony Richardson who's running around, right? Like Justin Fields took horrible sacks last year, and Richardson was only at minus 7.1, which was like less than Bryce Young. So he's not messing around in the pocket and like taking terrible negative plays. He's poised and natural in the pocket and not being frantic and stuff. So I think that there's a lot of room to grow, and I don't think that he is as low floor of a guy as a passer as some people think.
I like it, Ron.
He's my 102 as well.
Athlete.
He's your 102, Pat?
Yeah, I have him 102.
The NFL is definitely moving. I mean, that was a big storyline from last year. The mobility of QBs, the ways that defenses are playing, that's allowed offenses to do in the running game and in the passing game as teams are playing deep. I mean, like his athleticism, everything you just said, and then his athleticism, I think, just fits where the NFL is moving right now so well at the quarterback position that, I mean, it's not hard to make the case.
And I do think the Anthony Richardson combo, and just because I have best ball brain, it is like a little different for redraft, right? Where there is some risk, like, if the Seahawks take him and sit him behind Geno, like then you burn a pick. But obviously Dynasty is an entire different conversation. And does it change your or your opinion on him if he were to sit a year for Dynasty? Or for you guys, is it just like, no, I'm playing the long game here anyways?
I think you kind of have to assume that going in with Richardson, that it's not, a front half of 2023 type situation. I also think, I talked to Pat about this a little bit yesterday, but I also think that like, he's like the slam dunk QB1 in single quarterback leagues, like it's very, very easy to go that route because it doesn't matter, right? Like if you miss on that, it's not a big deal. I can understand though, like the safety, at least like, especially pre-draft, right? Because we still don't know for sure what's going on with Richardson and where he's going to land and how this is going to go. We all assume he's probably going to go top 10 in the draft, but like, what if this becomes sort of like a Malik Willis situation like last year where he just falls way, way further than we expect. And then all of a sudden you're drafting you're drafting him over a Stroud or a Bryce Young in a super flex league, and you're going to be punching yourself in the nuts after doing that. And so I think that's the anti-Richardson argument right now. I think once we officially see these top 5, top 10 draft capital, then the conversation is going to really, really heat up because I think we'd all agree that from a just strictly ceiling standpoint, he's got it in this class of the big three.
That's a great point. I mean, that's part of why I really do have him 6, but it's largely because of that concern. I think there's more risk that he can fall than the fantasy community is. Like,
I think he's helped by the fact. Will Levis looking at Rotoviz's. So I think he's helped by that.
I'm looking at Rotoviz's pre-combine mock drafts, and I love Rotoviz. You guys had him in the middle of the second round, Blair, pre-combine. I think since the combine, we've all gotten really excited, and rightfully so, right? And the NFL is going to get more excited by those combine numbers. And if he goes top 10, like JJ said, then I think it all comes together. But there is some concern still that we're accelerating too fast. I don't know.
All right, let's head to Blair here with the 1-3. What are you doing here, Blair?
All right. Gonna go off my usual blueprint and take Jahmyr Gibbs here.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I would have guessed this pick from you. Speak on that.
I mean, I think Gibbs, if Bijan weren't in the class, we'd be talking about him as the 101. He's got those Alvin Kamara vibes, so I'm here for it.
And I feel like the detractors, when they bring up Gibbs, they talk about his weight. I mean, what are some comps or like realistic kind of production outcomes that you're hoping for with Gibbs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not really worried about his weight. I think, we've seen small running backs have a lot of success. I mean, when I bring up these comps, they're going to sound ridiculous. But if we're talking like Eckler and McCaffrey, then you see how these small guys can hit. I'm just pulling up some of his sims in the box score scout. Sorry, bad radio.
You're good. Yeah, I mean, would you guys, it does start to really get interesting with the superflex combo, because we're talking about Stroud at 2, and now we took another quarterback and Gibbs over him. And I know JJ and Pat, when you guys were talking about him the other day, you were talking to how he might be someone like DeAndre Swift, where it takes even a little while until he actually starts to get used in a way that's really productive for fantasy.
Yeah. I think he's someone who, again, is going to be able to probably hold value year over year, because we generally see that with higher end running backs. But I do have concerns. I personally have concerns about the weight, not because like he didn't hit a 200-pound threshold or something like that. And I'm just like, yeah, get out of here. You're not 200 pounds. Pat and I joked about how he didn't drink enough milk that day. But I'm definitely not, in that, have that belief. But, we do generally see like 210 plus pound backs just fare better in fantasy. And if you adjust that even for, where guys are being selected in the draft, because obviously we don't see a ton of these like smaller backs get drafted in round 2 or as day 2 picks. And so obviously, that there's that's definitely a consideration you have to think about. But historically it's just tough, because when you really find, and I'm curious to see what Rotoviz is saying about the comps and stuff, because it feels like his comps, to get good ones, you have to go back to like the 2000 to 2010 range, like to get like the CJ Spillers, the Chris Johnson, like those kind, and Reggie Bush, like those kinds of players. Whereas like in my model that I find comps that are based on 2011 and onward, it's like Isaiah Pede and Giovanni Bernard, so it's just a little bit tough. I mean, I think there's a little bit of volatility to his profile, but I think from a value standpoint, he should be able to hold value year over year. Best receiving back in this class, super, super dynamic, really, really good player. I just have those concerns about what his workload might look like. And then those comps are just, it's tough to find those really accurate ones.
No, that's a good point. Isaiah Pede is one that does show up near the top. Bernard's on this list too. Going back a little farther, you get Javid Best, which is kind of interesting. And then the other guys are all about 15 pounds heavier. So, you get like ETN and DeMarco Murray, Cam Akers, but those guys are a little bit bigger. So there's something a little bit off there. I mean, the one thing, if a guy is going to come in under 200 and be really small, you want him to be super fast, which Gibbs was. So
yeah.
And you want him to be an elite receiving back.
Exactly.
And there's also something to be said for the fact that like not a lot of sub 200 pound guys play at Alabama and get used like Gibbs got used.
Yeah.
So it's like he is kind of a unique guy. I worry about if you're taking him over the quarterbacks. I don't know that he's going to increase a ton in value. I think I agree with JJ. I think he'll hold value, but I don't know that he doesn't profile a guy who as a rookie is going to get workhorse volume. Like even CMC didn't get workhorse volume as a rookie, and then he turned into the league's biggest workhorse. So that would be my concern with taking him over the quarterbacks.
Your point about him.
Go ahead,
your point about him at Alabama, it was just making me think it's one of the things about comps where you guys talked about this in your pod as well. Like it's not an easy class to comp. I'm a noted kind of hater of comps in general. I think we rely on them too much. Like I feel like every player is pretty unique. We comp these guys, and then after they play a couple years, it's like, yeah, well, that guy was way different. Like we now know who that guy is. Like he is a different thing than anyone else. Every player in the NFL, like we never comp veterans who have played in the NFL with each other. very rarely, right? Like
I do sometimes.
so occasionally. There's a couple like smaller cohorts, but for the most part, it's like Ja'Marr Chase is Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson's Justin Jefferson. Like all of these dudes are exactly who they are. They're their own little delicate flowers, as I like to joke. and I think Gibbs, like your point about the Alabama undersized back, they actually used him. Like that seems relevant to me. Like he was good there.
I would also just say Gibbs, the things he does well, like if he does things that dynasty managers will love, right? If he breaks off some 60-yard touchdown runs, like a la the CJ Spiller comps, and he's catching a few balls, dynasty managers will be very happy to extrapolate a workload increase in year 2. You know, like they will tell themselves that story, no matter how realistic it is or not.
That's true. That's actually a really strong counter to my point of him not increasing in value. Like he could just increase in value purely on hype. Like CMC broke out in year 2. What's happening?
I mean, to be fair,
To be fair,
Kenneth Walker kind of did that this past year. Like Walker was not a pass catcher, was not that great of a run. I mean, like he had those monster home run plays, but he was dead last in the league in success rate. He was dead last in the league at gaining positive yards, and he still became the dynasty like RB3 despite, all of that. I mean, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he like was nearly as good as what the market probably thinks of him. So it's just one of those things. Like these running backs gain value, just generally speaking, when they're drafted in startups in the first like 2 or 3 rounds.
And also because of what we just talked about, how there's this gap usually at the top of, not always, but especially right now at the top of running back, we're like, we don't want the old running backs anymore. So the new ones have to take their place. They have to be the top 3 running backs.
Yeah.
All right, Ron, you're on the clock with pick 4. We are known to piss yellow around here every once in a while. Are you going to grab a quarterback?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a quarterback. I'll take Bryce Young here. Really, I actually love Jahmyr Gibbs. Really, the issue for me is like I think as much as I was sort of saying, like Jared Goff and Tua are kind of like the range of outcomes for these quarterbacks. I think as well like they could also be a lot better than that, and Joe Burrow-ish, I guess. But like go in a dynasty league right now, and if you try and trade for like even like the back end QB ones like Deshaun Watson, like if you go out there and try and like field a reasonable offer for like Deshaun Watson or Prescott, Kyler, like Lamar Jackson, like any of these guys, it's almost impossible to even get into that conversation. But now, like outside of like Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, like if you're going to try and like get 2 firsts in return for your running back, it's going to be a pretty tough conversation to have. So naturally, if a quarterback like Bryce Young, like CJ Stroud, they both go, top 2 in the NFL draft, then I guess the way I see it is they have a path to, first round startup value. Like if you look at startups right now, it's 8 to 10 quarterbacks, and it's like it's Chase Jefferson and it's 8 to 10 quarterbacks. So I'll just take whatever position can get me into there. I lean Bryce Young. I think like literally I'll have him back to back in my rankings, like my startup rankings. I'll have him probably middle of the second round of startups, like back to back. I only lean Bryce Young. I think there's a little bit more rushing upside than CJ Stroud. I think it's a little bit less like statuey. So if I have 2 guys that I think are very comparable, I'll just take the guy who I think has a little bit more rushing upside in Bryce Young. Like his rushing yard market share was a little bit better. I was looking at PFF. I don't know if I have the stat with me, but they take out sacks from rushing yards, which is nice because like college reference or whatever includes sacks. His rushing in his final year wasn't bad at all. Bryce Young, he had 311 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, I believe. I wish I had Stroud on me too, but I don't. But 311 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns is like decent. That's like around where you're hoping he's obviously not going to be in like the Lamar Jackson area, but you're hoping that he can get into the, 3 fantasy points on per game on the ground. Like I think like Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Mahomes were sort of in that area this year. I don't think it'd be crazy to see Young slip in that area.
Love it. Does anyone else have Young over Stroud, or are you guys all Stroud over Young?
I have Young over Stroud.
I have Stroud over Young, but I don't have like a massively strong opinion on it.
I just love that it like I was talking about Richardson 6 in my list, but like this top 6 really, and it was nice to get the 6th pick because I'm just gonna let you guys decide for me. But it's really tight, right? Like and so the guy who's minus 300 to be the 101 hasn't been taken yet through 4 picks, right? But like you can make a really strong case for all these guys. I wasn't really trying to knock Richardson when I said that, and that's why I keep going back to it. It's like, yeah, it's where I landed on it, but I wanted to have him second too. You know what I mean? Like these are all viable picks, and it seems really flat this year.
Is that for any of you guys? I think conventional wisdom is Stroud to the Panthers, Young to the Texans. Is that factoring in? Like, do you guys prefer Panthers, Texans as like a landing spot, or is it just like all things are equal here?
They're both pretty awful, if I'm being honest. Like you could talk me into like the Panthers bringing in like Reich and McCown and like, you know, like that seems like a very functional. These guys are coming here, they're having their pick of the litter. Like it's not like, you know, them just getting planted a quarterback. Like, is Lovie Smith even still on the Texans? Like, I don't even know what like infrastructure they have in place over there.
PFF Bobby, they got PFF Bobby.
PFF. Oh, okay, yeah. It's tough. I don't know. Yeah, so I'll take like I think that they're both pretty terrible spots.
Yeah,
I think the Texans is a pretty good spot. I think you're getting Shanahan style offense coming in, and like Bryce Young is kind of Tua-y, but he's like Tua-y with like more fun scramble stuff going on. And that I have him number 2 as well, because I agree with you, Ron. I think he's got a little bit more willingness to run. And you do worry about the size with that, but he scrambled more. He also had some really nice throws under pressure. And I think that's pretty, like a guy who's looking to scramble and is like hitting deep throws under pressure is a pretty decent fantasy profile. Plus he's very, very accurate, great thrower anyway. So I slightly prefer Bryce Young. Plus I think the landing spot is like maybe significantly better because the Panthers are just like Reich. I don't think is a bad coach, but I don't know. They've just they've been in the wilderness for so long. Not the Texans haven't, but if you're getting a Shanahan style offense there, with a little bit maybe more analytically minded staff, I'd rather have my quarterback go there.
All right, let's go then to Pat. You do have pick 5 here. Gretch said nice top 6 tier for him. So who's going to be your pick at 5?
I'm going to pick Stroud, even though I just butted him a little bit. But
right.
I think everything Ron said about the market, I would love to take JSN here just for fun, but like you need him to hit like his high end outcome. And then like if he turns into CeeDee Lamb, like cool, but is CeeDee Lamb worth more than, you know, a really solid starter? And the other thing is that at quarterback, I mean, the other thing is the NFL seems to be shifting a little bit where like if you're not as protected as one of these veterans as you would have been like 5 or 10 years ago. Like the bottom's falling out on some of the veteran quarterbacks. So to get a guy who's on a rookie quarterback deal and looks like, you know, he'll be like a pretty productive guy, then it's just like that safety plus production combo that's really hard to find at the most important position.
Checking in on the chat here, shouldn't it be back-to-back? Gretch, guys, catch up, watch from the beginning. We drew straws for 1 through 6 and the back half. Anyone else have thoughts on CJ Stroud? He does like feel like the vanilla pick here, but do you guys see some upside with Stroud?
I think the upside would be that he runs more than he did in college. I think we saw that a little bit with Fields too, coming out of Ohio State. So, you know, and he has the size profile over Young, obviously, to potentially be able to do that. So I think it's sort of like the unknown of that rushing profile and him really unlocking that and unleashing that in the NFL. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe it doesn't come to fruition. It's not going to come to fruition the way that it did with Justin Fields by any means. But, you know, there could be a little bit more juice there than what he showed off in college.
Yeah. All right, Gretch, you get to do it. It sounds like you had a tear break here.
Yeah, it's JSN for me. I do want to say for Stroud, these really smart people have convinced me that he shouldn't be the 101. Because I mean, all those rushing takes are very valid. But yeah, JSN, incredibly good. Only ran 40 routes last year. I don't think we should even talk about that really at all. Well, he ran 69 his freshman year. Basically, I mean, we have the one season where he ran about 400 routes, but it wasn't a tremendous season. Mostly looking at all these types of people's work. The one thing that I like to dig into a little bit sort of on my own, I'm a sucker for targets per out run. Went and dug up the college targets per out run stuff. He was really, really good that year, over 28%. Garrett Wilson was 28.9. JSN was 28.1. And Olave was 24.8% of their routes that they were targeted on. Olave JS was the highest ADOT, and Wilson was a higher ADOT than JSN as well. He's the lower ADOT at 9.3. A lot fewer like air yards than Olave, even though he was seeing more targets. But the fact that in that offense he was that productive, obviously we know the yardage and the TDs and all the stats. And then I don't know that we're talking enough about what he could be as a prospect when we see how good his agility numbers were, and he ran a pretty solid 40. Like, he is a better athlete than I expected him to be. He actually, I didn't think, like, I was talking last year when we were watching film on the show. I was like, he doesn't look like he's that good of an athlete. He's a good athlete, dude. Like, he's a really agile. He's like 99th percentile agility drills at receiver. Over at Rotoviz. I was looking at their workout combine, percentiles earlier today. Like, it's like that good. It's peak for what he's going to do in the NFL. Like, he's such a high floor guy. I play all PPR. I'm a sucker for a guy like this in PPR. Like, he's going to be a really good high floor PPR guy. I don't think like the Juju comps are fair, because Juju, I think Juju was really good, and then injuries probably. I don't know that, like, what, I don't know that we know what Juju is, right? Like, JSN's going to be really good. JSN's going to be good.
Yeah.
Does JSN seems like the slam dunk pick here. Would anyone have done anything differently?
No.
Yeah. Ron, what are your thoughts on JSN? Where are you at? Is he too slow to be an elite NFL producer?
No, I don't really look at 40-yard dash a ton. I do love like the fact that he is an elite agile agility athlete, because that's all that really matters for him. Like, if he's running out of the slot with an under 10-yard ADOT with a 4.2 40, like, what do we really care about that? You know what I mean? But the fact that, in a telephone booth, change of direction, like quickness and all that, the fact that he's like amazing at that, it's really nice to see, because it fits his skill set. It's like lockstep with what he actually does on the field. Take it for what you want in terms of hands in the dirt. Like, I was watching the combine feed on my computer when it was happening. All the coaches were gushing about him and like the gauntlet drills and stuff. I think that there's honestly a chance that he goes top 10 in the draft. I know that he's sort of slipping you'll see him in the 20s. It wouldn't shock me if he goes like 9th to the Bears, or, I think like one of the later spots would be like 12th to the Texans. So I think he'll get drafted a lot earlier than people think. I agree with Gretsch too, just throwing out year 3. Like, his profile is sort of like, I would call it like Jamar Chase light out of the slot, where it's like nothing in year 1, crazy year 2 with like NFL producers there. And then you can just sort of write off year 3. I think if he sort of sat out like Jamar Chase did, like, he might be like a lock to go like top 5, top 10 right now. If he just said, hey guys, I'm going to prepare for the draft. I'm good on playing this year. So yeah, he's my wide receiver 1 as well.
Blair, what would you rather see from him? Like, get, say top 12 draft capital, like Ron's talking about, go and have the chance to be the number 1 on a team like the Bears or the Texans? Or would you rather have him get a better quarterback in the back half of the draft, but maybe be more of like a Devonta Smith to an AJ Brown type?
Oh, good question. I think, man, that's so hard to say, because it depends on like the specific situation. I think even if he ended up going in the back half to a team with a good quarterback, he could still end up taking that number 1 wide receiver spot. In the right situation, I think you're talking about like Cooper Kupp upside. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's a good comp.
So,
at least statistically, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it would be a problem if he slipped a little bit. Obviously a lot had to go right for Kupp to have the sort of seasons he did. So if you see JSN go to the Bears, maybe we're kind of a little more skeptical about that outcome happening, but
yeah, I meant more when I said statistically, I didn't mean this 20 plus touchdowns or whatever. I meant more like ADOT and the ability to create yak and some big plays even out of the slot, like he did in some of his big seasons.
JJ, any JSN thoughts before we move on?
No, I think that the fear with JSN is that he's just a slot guy. Like, that's what people would throw out there as the con to JSN. But if he's going to get drafted in the first round or the top half of the first round, he's going to play the perimeter. A team's not going to draft him that high and just throw him in the slot. Pat and I talked about, a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who played the slot a lot, but can play the perimeter. Or, you look at my like favorite, he didn't necessarily comp in my model this way, but I think that what we're looking at is someone who is going to produce similar to like Keenan Allen at the NFL level, where Half of his routes are going to come from the slot. Probably he can still play the perimeter, but he's that technician in the middle of the field. I just think he's like a Keenan Allen plus. I mean, Keenan Allen was a great prospect too, but he didn't test the same way. I had that injury and stuff coming out, but I think JSN, has even more upside than that. But I think that's sort of like the way that he's going to accumulate points.
Cup, right? Like Cup was kind of slot only for a few years, and then started being like the 100% routes guy. At some point and playing outside in 2 wide receiver sets.
Yep.
And JSN was even in a different stratosphere than Cup as far as like the agility stuff too. Like, I mean, his profile is pretty sick when you factor in the production and the agility stuff. And then his 40 was fine too. It wasn't like that ended up being a knock. It was basically neutral there. All right, Pat, I feel like this is more of a choose your own adventure spot here in this format. So what are you thinking?
This is a spot you don't want to be in. You bang down Gretchen's door to trade up. You get JSN, or you try to trade down, I think, because I'm gonna take Will Levis. I don't like
no. That's what I had next to. I'm with you, Pat. I'm with you. That's what I would have taken.
It's no fun at all. But look, guys, I drafted a lot of Daniel Jones. I drafted a lot of Zach Wilson. I drafted a lot of Justin Herbert, though. This sometimes works really well. It's sometimes a total disaster. And sometimes you get Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones comps really closely to Levis for me. Levis has like a pretty big arm, I guess, but he doesn't really throw deep. He's like pretty mobile. He scrambled a little bit. He takes sacks like horribly. He's even worse than Jones at taking sacks. So I don't know.
Otherwise, how was the play, Miss Lincoln? I mean, what are you doing?
Look, man, he's Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones, you've started from 4 years. He signed it. They didn't pick up his 5th year option, but then he plays well just at the right time. He gets a new deal. Now you can trade off him. Like Daniel Jones has been a home run pick, and no one wanted him, and no one's going to want Levis. And I don't think Daniel Jones is very good, and I don't think Levis is very good. But there's no one left.
Daniel Jones went top 10. There's a possibility Levis doesn't even go in like the first round.
That's what I wanted to ask you guys. Like, how, because we're now hearing buzz that he could fall like pretty far, and that would make this a terrible pick. Are you guys buying that?
Yeah, but the difference though, that when you're picking him here as opposed to taking him in like 2nd overall, is the opportunity cost, right? Like the other wide receivers that we would be picking right here, I don't mind them necessarily, but it's not nearly on JSN's level. You're not getting a Jahmyr Gibbs type running back prospect. So like, to me, I think it's the right kind of bet to make. You're probably going to feel better about it though post draft if and when he does go, top 15 or something like that. And you got to hope that some of these teams are, as quarterback hungry and needy as they appear to be.
If the Buccaneers pass on him, he's like the next Malik Willis or something. Like, I don't understand how does he get past the Buccaneers? That would be insanity.
Did you see his back picks today though? Did you guys
looks
see
huge.
Yo, he's looking yoked.
The shoulder
man.
and arm was popping. Like before, it wasn't that big, but he has
I didn't know we were doing back
scars
picks
for shoulders.
What do I need to Google here?
You gotta look
quads enough.
I thought this was a leg-based community. Back picks now?
This guy looks like a linebacker right now. I'm not even kidding. Like,
who are we talking about? Malik Willis?
All right, I'm pulling it up.
Levis.
I'm pulling it up here. Is this what we're talking about?
Yeah, bro. Look at that.
Dude,
Look at the shoulder.
You guys let me get this guy at 7.
Look at that. I mean, the macro point though about this stuff is, right, Pat, like, we're collectively bad at projecting and scouting these quarterbacks. People were famously wrong on Josh Allen. People were light on Justin Herbert coming in, and that when you do hit on them, they hit in such a big way that you have a multi-decade producer at a very important position.
And even if you don't like fully hit, you like with the Daniel Jones scenario, you often like kind of hit anyway. Like in a league where I took Daniel Jones, I traded off of him. I ended up getting back picks that turned into Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. So like even the hits aren't hits sometimes.
There's going to be a lot of spots to get off on that train too. With like quarterbacks, like I said, they're dominating the first round of startups. You can have Will Levis. There's going to be multiple points with Will Levis. Maybe he starts a game and he looks like half decent. And then like maybe you can cash out for like the equivalent of like a 2nd or 3rd round startup value. So there'll be like he doesn't even have to show a ton if he can just sort of get the benefit of the doubt from the market.
Those
He
look
doesn't
like
have to show a ton, but he's showing a lot.
He's
here.
showing a lot here.
those look like implants. Like what's going on there?
Shout out
That's
to
not
everyone
even
watching this on the
natural.
big screen with their family right now. All right.
Is that even healthy?
Pat fell on the Will Levis grenade. All right, JJ, you are up with the 8th pick here.
There were muscles there that I didn't know existed in the human body. I just want to say.
With this pick, I'm gonna be somewhat of a homer and go with Jordan Addison, my alma mater of Pitt. He then transferred to USC, but got Pitt that ACC championship with Kenny Pickett. It's a beautiful thing. I think Addison's the safest option at wide receiver 2 in this class over like a Quentin Johnson. Johnston's someone. You get that Big 12 profile, and I can see the upside, and the top comp for him in my model is T. Higgins, so like he has that size, speed sort of profile perimeter guy, and the physicality, I should say. But the issue with Johnson is that his production profile isn't as like stellar as what you're going to get from a Jordan Addison. Addison comps a little bit more closely to like a Calvin Ridley type, like a potentially Tyler Lockett type, just like the skinny wideouts that can play the perimeter, play all over the field, had good college production. So I think Addison's a pretty safe bet. Maybe he won't give you those consistent wide receiver 1 seasons and be an alpha, but I think he's going to be a pretty consistent wide receiver 2.
Does JJ sound worried about Addison being a twig? JJ does not sound to me like a man who's worried right now.
No, I mean, look, we've gone through this before in the past. Wide receiver size might have mattered, early 2010s ish, that range, but I haven't found much signal with it. We saw it with Devontae Smith. If you have the production profile, if you have all of these things going in your favor, you can sort of knock away and forget about the size aspect. I care about size at running back, but wide receiver not nearly as big of a deal.
Tutu Atwell
DBs
proves
can't
it still
jam
matters
anymore?
at some point.
DBs can't jam anymore. They can't get physical anymore. Offenses are more spread. I mean, it makes
Right.
sense. It all fits logically.
Yeah.
The way I see it too, if the NFL doesn't care and he goes first round and they know, he's 170 whatever pounds and they just spent a first round pick on him, then it's not really a problem for me. Like if they're going to invest that draft capital, especially in the first round, I'm willing to look past it as well.
Tyler did donate a super chat tonight. He was hoping that anytime someone referenced their own model that we would strike a Zoolander-esque pose. I know our guy Dwayne McFarland over at Fantasy Life has been striking a pose for him. So, I mean, does the panel collectively, I mean, I'll do a lot of things for $20.69. You guys all want to give your blue steel look here, Gretch? All right, fine. I'll do it. This is for you, Tyler. Is that what you wanted, Tyler? There's plenty more where that came from for every $20 you send over. All right, Jordan Addison. Any other comments on Addison here? Obviously, I feel like him versus Quentin Johnson has been kind of the debate and kind of your flavor of wide receiver that you prefer, just because they are such different prospects. Is anyone on team Quentin Johnson over Addison?
I am.
Speak on that.
Well, I really like Quentin Johnson. He's, it is kind of the flavor thing. I do like the bigger wide receivers. I also don't love, I know a lot of people out there, we've been burned on TCU wide receivers with Rager, and you have Josh Doxson, and it gets pretty ugly. I don't really love the helmet scout thing. You also can look through the Big 12. I know we're getting pretty far back here, but Des Bryant was a stud. Michael Crabtree was a stud. You have CeeDee Lamb, Marquise Brown. But I just Quentin Johnson to me. I know that there's hand catching issues or body catching issues. I don't really watch film. So if somebody wants to educate me on his terrible body catching, go ahead. I get that, I guess. And I get, his best season, 60 catches, 1,067 yards, 6 touchdowns, isn't great. But the upside is really there, man. 12.9 ADOT with 8.99 yards after catch per reception. He's, above 3 yards per out run. He is a dynamic player at 6'3", 208, which is really exciting, where he's catching the ball downfield. He's putting a ton after the catch on it as well. So I'm really excited about it. I'll also say with the raw stats, he's not going to pop because his TCU offense, Max Duggan until this year sucked. The passing yards 3 years ago was 1,963 passing yards in the Big 12. at TCU, then 2,875 before that. So he didn't really have a ton to work with. He's popped in huge games. Like he had 6 for 163 and a touchdown against number 2 ranked Michigan. So you're just sort of getting a guy to me who I think can give you massive spike weeks and hit in a big way. So I'm very interested in Quentin Johnson, especially, he'll probably go first round just like Jordan Addison. So that's exciting.
Yeah, Ron, you fell right into my trap of me selecting Quentin Johnson.
Oh my God,
but
no.
not really feeling like justifying it.
Oh no,
Dude, you just sniped yourself.
Guy just hit me with a speak on that, bro.
And on top of that, I made you deliver all the points that I definitely would have said myself.
No.
So, wow.
Hey,
That's evil.
Well, I'll say this about Quentin Johnson to tell you that it was a bad pick. It wasn't that bad of a pick, but I'll pretend that it was a bad pick. So in my prospect model, I need the pose since I said that. But in my prospect model, there's 3 main production metrics. There's receptions per game, best season yards per team pass attempt, which gets the most weight, and then touchdown share. And if you look at, Quentin Johnson didn't hit a 2.5 best season yards per team pass attempt, and he had a receptions per game rate below 4.5. Of the first round wide receivers to not hit those thresholds since 2011, Kelvin Benjamin, Cordero Patterson, and Henry Ruggs. And then on top of that, if you look at guys who had a negative stat score, which is just a below average, stat score, production score within the model that went in the first round, those guys are Kadarius Toney, Philip Dorsett, and Jalen Waddle on top of the 3 that I just named. So the only dude of that group was Waddle, but Waddle had a very unique profile coming out, obviously had a really good draft capital, all that kind of stuff. So there's like, look, I get it. Like T. Higgins, again, like I said, top comp for him, but the downside is there. Like one of the comps for him was Brashad Perriman in the model. So
you didn't have to say Henry Ruggs. That was just too far, JJ. You just took it too far with that.
Cordero Patterson was an RB1 at age 30. Let's put some respect on his name.
Any other Blair, what's big RotoViz's Quentin Johnson take? Because back in the Dez Bryant, Demaryius Thomas, Julio Jones days, I mean, Quentin Johnson, this is that dude.
That's true. I think
put RotoViz on his jersey, man. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, Johnson definitely would have been a big wide receiver hero. I mean, the one thing that is kind of that is a red flag that we've been talking about for a long time at RotoViz is the lack of touchdown production. That I think matters. I mean, JJ mentioned it, the touchdown share, I think matters more than most people realize. So that's at least one red flag that I'm looking at that kind of has me a little skeptical about Johnson. But
he really does have a really wide range of outcomes, I think, because he did not do well on contested catches. He has this great leaping ability. His contested catch rate on deep balls was terrible. He also had a lot of contested deep targets. So it's like, can he even get separation? And if he's not good at contested catch, and he's not getting any touchdowns. So this is like, he's like a 50-50 ball guy who loses. That sounds like a lot of fun. But then he also does have that yards after catch profile, which is kind of Brandon Ayuki. It's like he gets his yak deep. He's not a guy you throw it to underneath and has to like make guys miss and stuff. He's actually a downfield receiver who's then adding after the catch, which is a pretty high upside profile. So it's like if he's good, he'll be really good, and it's a problem that he might be terrible. You just got to.
The other thing you mentioned in your write-up for him, JJ, was that there was a couple the misses you mentioned were all the first-round draft capital guys, but there's a couple second-round guys that were like positive.
Yeah. T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, like those kinds of guys had similar-ish type profiles. So like, you don't want to just like create arbitrary thresholds just to create them. And I think that's important. I like to approach things with more nuance than that. So yeah, I think it just plays into the fact that this dude has a ceiling. It's there. We've seen guys that have done this in the past, but he can also be Brashad Perriman, which we obviously don't want in the first round.
Tough that the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 feel like they have a lot more risk this year than the last few classes, obviously.
Yeah.
A lot stronger.
AJ in the comments saying he just needs the Patriots to draft Quentin Johnson, so I know he's bad. That would be nice confirmation there. All right, Ron, I rugged you so hard on your pick. Just a classic rookie mistake on here. So big tear gap after Quentin Johnson too. So who do you want?
It's insane. This guy he's like, maybe I'll take Quentin Johnson. Speak on that. Does anybody in here got a good So it's a bummer I had to take this guy because I'm not even a big Zach Charbonnet fan. I know some guys will cape up for Zach Charbonnet. I'll take Zach Charbonnet. And I think that this was a point that like Gretsch was making a little bit with the whole like should Bijan go 101? Or actually, I think it was JJ making this point. But running backs like almost don't have to do a ton to gain value in Dynasty. Like we sort of see them with rose-colored glasses, like, oh, they're like 21, 22. Like they had 120-point game in like week 8 of the rookie year. Like let's make them, a second-round startup pick. Like there were years out there. If you remember, like Darius Geis was a 2-3 turn guy. Kerryon Johnson was a 2-3 turn guy in startups. Like you can go down the list. Like Cam Akers had what, like a couple of like 20+ carry games, and he was like I think like a 2-3 round turn guy too. Miles Sanders. So I don't love Zach Charbonnet, but I think he doesn't have to show a ton, and he can really give you a ton of return on investment from where you buy him at, where you probably get him, 110 is probably somewhere like a 7th or 8th in a startup. Like he could pretty easily be like a 3, 4, 5 round guy next year if he just, like with Kenneth Walker we just saw. He doesn't have to do, if he goes second round in the NFL draft, he only has to do so much to, give you a profit.
I felt like I might become somebody who's going to cape for this dude when I was doing my initial research just today. When JJ was talking about some of the guys in his stuff that comp to him, there's a lot of really good names, but the miss was Charles Sims, and that's when I knew I was in. I fucking love Charles Sims. Like, you got a big dude who catches passes and put up numbers. I watched some film on him today, and I was like, yeah, I mean, he doesn't look explosive, but if that's the big knock on him, like, he's smooth. He gets to space. Like that, yeah, and Chip Kelly's offense creates holes, but then, like, when he runs to daylight. He runs to yardage. It's like Alvin Kamara in the open field doesn't look super explosive. It reminded me a little bit of like going all the way back to Arian Foster. Like there are guys like this. Now he's not quite as big as Arian Foster. I think he's 214 and Foster was more like 224. I was kind of looking at some of the weights. He's the same weight as Kamara, similar athleticism, but smaller than, Arian Foster. And I can't remember the third one I was thinking of that kind of fit this sort of more smooth than explosive, but still really good for fantasy mold. But maybe it was like, no, it wasn't Melvin Gordon. But anyway.
Kareem Hunt comes to mind.
I wasn't the guy, but that is a good one. But yeah, I mean, it's a list of producers and I'm not saying he's going to be that good or that type of a superstar, but if Kamara was a 1-2 turn guy because he didn't have this great profile. He didn't have the great, necessarily elite athleticism. If you're going to find somebody like that in this class, it seems like this is like a good guy to bet on for that type of stuff. Yeah, Blair, your model loves, I'm sure it loves him because it loves the receiving like market share and right. Does he fit you have like 2 main cutoffs, right? That you love for your best running backs?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to see a 10% market share of receiving yards, which he got. He's up at 12%. And then, 100 yards per game, 100 rushing yards per game is a nice cutoff that's kind of easy to meet. But the number of backs that meet both thresholds, or not the number, but the backs that meet both thresholds often are pretty successful. So it's
the Eno Benjamin profile.
Okay, yeah. So Eno's the exception.
He's the outlier. But this is why we love Eno, right? I mean, it's similar to Eno, but it could have some draft capital here. Which
if Eno doesn't say, if Eno was a quieter man, I think we wouldn't be saying that. He's about to go off.
DJ Pro is one too.
I mean, we don't got to name all the misses.
Like,
but I love him too.
Outside of Bijan, Chardonnay has the best chance to be like a true bell cow, right? Of the running backs in this class.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at guys, and I talked about this in my prospect guide, but if you look at guys who were drafted in round, this is what Ben was just referencing, but if you look at guys who were drafted in round 2 and round 3 since 2011 that were 210 plus pounds, he's well over 210 and had a 12th best season reception share above 12%. You get Le'Veon Bell, Joe Mixon, Daniel Thomas, obviously an L there. DeAndre Swift, those are the second rounders. The third rounders are Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara, David Johnson, Charles Sims, DeMarco Murray, Zach Moss, Keyshawn Vaughn, Antonio Gibson, and Rashad White. I mean, it's just like good running back. I mean, all things considered, like third rounders do not hit at a very high rate at all. And those are the kinds of running backs you're looking at whenever you just look at those 2 parameters for Charbonnet. So I think he's a very, very solid prospect.
David Johnson was the other one I was trying to think of that's a little bit bigger than him, but runs a little bit more like smooth and like super explosive.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like I was watching that a little, like that type of runner, Foster, David Johnson, that mold.
I've become a sucker for the 210 plus pound backs who have receiving profiles. Like if you can just find guys like that, like that's what partially got me on like Isaiah Pacheco last year was that his receiving profile wasn't amazing, but he had a decent enough reception share in that horrific Rutgers offense. And if you can find guys like that, they generally have decent hit rates.
All right. Blair, you are up for the 111 here. And I'm quickly realizing this class doesn't seem that great. Like, am I like the 111 or 112 in a dynasty? And this is with Superflex tight end premium. But can you sell me on 111 being an exciting selection here?
Oh, I can. I think there's an easy pick here.
Let's go.
It's Jalin Hyatt.
Ooh.
Okay.
I think you could make a case for him as the wide receiver 2 in this class.
Ooh, okay. Here we go.
I mean, you're talking about yards per team attempt. He's one of only, I want to say 9 guys this year who had more than 3. He's 4th overall in yards per route run this season. I think he led the league or led the country in yards per target. He also scores touchdowns at a high rate. He's 4.4 speed. He's kind of, I mean, he's the same size as Addison, but ran faster, although Addison maybe was hurt. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like about Hyatt. True early declare, 21 years old.
All right, I know there's some Hyatt bears on the panel. What's the anti-Hyatt case? I've seen people posting screen grabs of him on Twitter being like, the DBs didn't cover him in college. He was just like running loose for touchdowns. I mean, what's the criticism on Hyatt?
It's that he ran like exclusively out of the slot, but he's like a undersized deep threat, and he's probably going to have to play on the outside in the NFL. And that's not what he did in college. And we only have the one season. He didn't really do anything until last year. He's a one-hit wonder, and he did it as a deep threat out of the slot. He's undersized. He is fast, 4.4 40, but he doesn't have elite speed. So I'm concerned like that. I don't think he has like this incredible, like physical elite athleticism to be able to overcome what I am assuming is going to be like a pretty raw route running skill set to be on the outside, given that he just like never did that in college. He never produced that way in college. So that's my concern. Also, he did produce a ton of his yards on go routes. So it's not just where he was lining up, but the routes it was coming on. Quentin Johnson also was a big go route guy, but at least he was out on the outside and he's big and he jumps high. So I'm just like concerned that he can actually do what he's going to be asked to do as a pro. But like in some ways, I like that he's falling a little bit in terms of his projected draft capital, because if he were to land with like the Bills, or if you were to land with the Chiefs and they're like, yeah, we know he's not like a prototypical outside guy. We're going to be creative, or we're going to run him out of the slot some in like 4 wide receiver sets. I'm back in, because he was really productive in that role.
The chat also mentioning Cedric Tillman, who he played with. Is that, people saying Tillman outproduced him. Is that actually a feather in his cap that he was playing alongside a really solid producer?
I think the case was that he played well without Tillman, and when Tillman was active, he didn't play as well. So I think it's probably a knock on him. Not one that I really factor in, but I've heard it.
Yeah. And Tillman's not a great prospect. He's like a borderline day 2 guy, 5th year senior. So it's not ideal.
Yeah. JJ, what's your Hyatt take?
My model likes him probably more than I do. Mostly because it takes best season numbers. One of his comps was Jameson Williams, mostly because the first 2 years didn't really do anything, and then this 3rd year he blows up. He declares early. He's coming out. He's going to be a 1st round pick. But I think he's more of like a diet Jameson Williams, because Williams at least has a better excuse as to why he didn't produce those first 2 years, because he was at Ohio State playing behind 3 absolute studs at wide receiver. Whereas I don't think you just have nearly the case for a guy like Hyatt. But in this within the this wide receiver class, I think that taking Hyatt here amongst the other wide receivers is fair because there's flags to a lot of the other wideouts that are going in this range.
Yep. All right, Gretch. The 112 here, is this as easy of a selection as JSN was?
No, I think there's two receivers that it would be one or the other for me, I think, at this point. And because you mentioned there's no repercussions or whatever, I'm just going to take Josh Downs. I think Zay Flowers is probably the right pick, but he's like small and old. And I don't know. I'm a sucker for the slot guys like Josh. Like Downs is also small, but and doesn't look like he'll get as good a draft capital. Exactly. Not as small and old as the other guy. That's exactly right. and more suited. Like he's really, really good out of the slot. And that's been the knock on him, is that he's only a slot receiver. But like, all right. I mean, like if you're going to be a really small receiver and be productive at the next level, number one, he is an early declare, I think, right? And
Downs is, yeah.
He is. And Flowers is not. You should be able to earn targets at a really high rate, and he always did. His targets per route run really strong. So are Flowers, for the record. They're pretty similar, but I just kind of feel like Flowers needs to be able to do it outside a little bit. JJ, you made a point in your prospect guide and also on the pod with Pat that Flowers only played in the slot like 33% or something. Yeah. He's one of these smaller guys that does play outside a little, but I just don't get the vibe that like he's going to be good enough to play on the outside at the NFL level. Downs is going to be asked to do that. I mean, I guess at 112 in a class where I do think it starts to thin out here. I like the high floor option. I think he's going to be a productive NFL player as someone slot receiver. Hopefully, I mean, somebody's taking him that's in a little bit of a spread offense, but maybe get like some Hunter Renfrow type seasons out of him,
Yeah, his top comp in the model. I'm doing that just to get Pete to continue to pose. There we go.
I'll do the next one, Pete, if you want.
You got to make the turn.
But he's like a spitting image of Elijah Moore. I mean, he's like the exact same kind of prospect that Moore was. The crazy thing about Moore was that, year one as a rookie, he played on the perimeter a lot more than we expected. He only played in the slot at 28% of the time or something like that. I don't know if we see that out of Downs. I don't think he's as good of a prospect as Elijah Moore was. But he does have a very, very similar profile. He's got like that sort of like a Wan'Dale Robinson from last year too. Where he can play the slot and hopefully find a team that just targets that area of the field at a really high rate.
Gretch, I think I could, if we want to do, you can have both of them. I think we could do like a rapid fire second round here, and you can double tap your two small old guys.
Are we snake drafting it?
I think we can snake draft it back.
All right, you can take. I mean, I don't really want
to.
I don't want to take another small old.
Live a little then. Take a tight end. You can do whatever you want, man.
I will take. I'll take Zay Flowers. I don't have a good. I wanted to go.
Luck almost back, expired on you, dude.
Yeah, I just auto drafted Zay Flowers.
Does anyone have any other thoughts on Zay?
One thing I like about Zay is that he was getting more of his yards downfield than Josh Downs, and that's another reason. In addition to him playing outside more, I like him more than Downs. My model likes Downs more, but my intuition likes Zay Flowers more, just because I think like his archetype's a bit better. He's going to be like an outside guy when he needs to be. He's basically kind of like that discount JSN type thing where he's going to play on the outside enough, like Tyler Lockett or something. Play on the outside a lot, probably play in the slot some. But he showed an ability to win downfield, and not just in the intermediate area, but he actually won deep downfield as well in college. And Downs was like much more of kind of gadgety in terms of his usage. So that actually really does concern me because it caps the ceiling if he's going to be an underneath slot receiver.
So they both suck.
By the way, I think
Flowers could be good.
The one thing that I don't think that I brought up or talked to anyone about, I'm curious to hear thoughts, but Downs' numbers 2 years ago were better than what he saw last year after he lost Sam Howell, right? Like that's the thing. Like, is that a thing that people have been talking about at all or like concerned about at all? Because it just seems like that could be an issue. Like yards per route run as a metric, for instance, or even yards per team pass attempt. It can still be influenced to some degree by quarterback play. Like, it's not completely agnostic to what's going on around them. And so I do think that there's some concern that, like, he looks so good analytically. He has this best season 3.52 yards per team pass attempt rate, but that was also in a season where he had way, way better quarterback play. So that's at least something to think about, because it did drop a good bit this past year.
Well, the issue is the quarterback he has now is actually really good too. Drake May, the brother of Luke May. Anybody out there March Madness fans?
Yeah.
But
really?
It's actually cool. It's a pretty cool connection. Like, I'm a sucker for those. I don't know why.
Yeah,
they're from my area, actually.
Really?
But Luke May's like 10, 15 years older than him then, right?
Probably like I would say 5 to 10. But yeah,
so
Luke May hit this incredible historic shot and then went to like an 8 a.m. class the next day. Luke May's a hero, man.
Wow, that's great.
But yeah, I think you could say like he's had good quarterback play the entire time, right? So he hasn't had like the Max Duggan sub 2,000 passing yard season. Like, he hasn't really. I mean, like, it's hard to use it as a knock against him in terms of like he hasn't hit adversity, but there's definitely some benefits to that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I should say like with a quarterback change, when you see such drastic differences, there could be tendencies from that quarterback that led to some of those numbers, and that's where like maybe a slight red flag would come into play for Downs.
I was thinking of Sean May. You guys remember Sean May?
Oh, yeah,
For
that
UNC?
was like 30 years ago.
Way back.
All right. Blair, you're back on the clock here with the 2-2.
Okay. I guess we'll go Marvin Mims here.
Yeah, I like it. This
Nice.
is, I
All
think, my most drafted guy in the big board contest. Select him at the end of basically every draft. Tell me why I was right.
Yeah, he's a productive player out of Oklahoma, 4.38 40. He's a little bit bigger than Hyatt and Addison, so you like to see that. Not that much bigger, but yeah, I don't think he's only 20 still. Too early to declare. So he's got the age, he's got the speed, he's got the production.
Is he going to get draft capital?
Yeah, I have seen him slipping a little. I think he'll still be in the third round, but
That's the only reason I would take like Flowers over him, because Mims seems to have a way cooler profile.
yeah, right. That's fair.
First round Flowers versus fourth round Mims could be. I don't think I want to go there. Yeah.
Like Hakeem Butler all over again.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. All right, Ron, you're back up here. Whoops. For
Now, hang on, Pete. Let's double check that you're not up. Oh, Ron is up. Okay.
Yeah, trust me, I can't. Ron, if you want me to speak on the player you're interested in, who are you doing here?
So we're taking pretty big leaps of faith here as creators on this platform, just because we don't have draft capital. So we could look like an idiot with the Anthony Richardson pick if he goes like second round. Someone that I'm willing to be very wrong with, like this could be Jamar Jefferson all over again. But I'll take Sean Tucker here.
Okay.
He could go day 3, and that would be, really ugly. It really depends with Sean Tucker. He's like there are two versions of Sean Tucker's profile where he's either the guy who didn't test or he's the guy who self-reported a 4.3 and jumped like 41 inches, like with some guy verifying it, I guess. But I do like Sean Tucker. He caught passes. He's fast. He's 207 pounds, so he's not too small. This is a ugly comp for him, but I kind of like the comp of like Duke Johnson. He catches passes. He's bigger. It's really just comes down to with Sean Tucker is a team going to see him and they're going to make him Duke Johnson or Giovanni Bernard, where he just catches passes and it's just satellite back, or if they use him as a dual threat type running back, like a Kareem Hunt, catching passes out of the backfield, running the ball, being explosive. But his numbers in terms of like the spreadsheet stuff, like he looks amazing. It's just a matter of do teams trust his like self-reported like little video he put on Twitter, and does that get him drafted on day 2? Because if it doesn't and he goes day 3, then that probably bumps him down to like a 2-3 turn guy for me.
All right. Any other thoughts on Sean Tucker?
He's got the best Twitter game in this class.
What's
You
he
guys gotta
tweeting?
check out his Twitter feed. It's unbelievable.
He does like recaps right after games.
Yeah, he
he'll
like
just say,
recaps. He's like, I had a pretty good game today, and then he like talks about like how he performed. It's
That's
unbelievable.
amazing.
He had like
That's
100
awesome.
yards on Boston College. He's like,
Yeah,
that was
he's got
pretty
this
good.
like hashtag pleased with the number 34 in it, like his college number and
Wow.
stuff. It's pretty incredible.
JJ, you need to start doing that after every late round pod. You know, kind of, hey, I had a great show. It's real
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, all of it, but like, and then he'll like list out his stats and stuff. Like I'm not trying. Like it's sort of like how you would probably like if you collected like baseball cards or something growing up, the way that you would like talk about like the stats on the back and stuff like that. Like that's how he portrays himself on Twitter. It's incredible.
Saturday we won. Syracuse 32, BC 23. I'm pleased with the outcome of the game and another fourth quarter comeback. I'm pleased with my performance. I rushed for 21 carries, 125 yards, and 2 TDs, 1 reception for 4 yards. Thanks to all the Q's fans who supported us throughout the season. Pleased. I mean,
Look
these
at
are
that.
great.
Oh, I'm not pleased.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't get what you meant about the pleased with the 34 now. I can't
Yeah,
remember
I'm
that.
not pleased with my performance or the outcome of the game. Offense struggled a little.
That's my
bet-
in my prospect guide. The first sentence for the Sean Tucker profile is, "I'm pleased to announce that the Z prospect model makes Sean Tucker."
That's perfect.
It makes sense. He went to a school with such a great journalism program too. I mean, he's really attacking these
Yeah.
post game recaps.
I mean, it's every stat. 1 reception for 4 yards made it into his tweet. I mean, I
So
love
good.
that.
So good.
All right. Some of you guys did happen to forget that this contest is tight end premium. Michael Mayer, aka Baby Gronk, aka the top tight end off the board who's gotten lost in the sea of Darnell Washington pushing a sled. I mean, this guy can still go top 15, right?
I think so.
All right.
Yeah.
Why are we letting Michael Mayer slip to pick 16 here
Probably
in this,
shouldn't have.
in this guy?
No, it's a good. It's your second very good pick in a row.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone want to speak on how much I'm crushing this mock draft? This is a good note, Kevin. I actually was worried tonight coming into this that there's going to be, last time I did the spreadsheet stuff, there was a lot of chirpers, backseat Google Sheet drivers, all the like, and you guys have really kept it in check tonight. And
Well, can I say something now that we're on the topic?
Oh god.
So every single pick, Pete has been dragging to make the column big enough
I
for
knew
that
this was
person's
coming.
name. You can double click the column. You just go up top and double click where you're dragging. It'll just auto do it.
Like that.
No, where you dragged it from. No, oh my god, this is shameful. Go up to where you dragged it. You were there before. Have you forgotten where? Double click that.
You can actually do that for every column all at once if you highlight them all.
Well, Blair, I wanted to start. slow.
Just like typically when the first tight end goes, we get in all caps tight end mother effing premium on this sheet. Where's that at?
You know what? It's like, it's hard to host the show, administer the draft board and just run laps around you guys with my selection. So just cut me a little slack. JJ, you are back on the clock for pick 17.
Yeah, I feel like there's kind of, I really like Sean Tucker. If I were to go running back here, I would hope that he would be there. There's just so many running backs right now at this point where we don't know draft capital, so I'd rather not go that route. And the wide receivers kind of suck. And I could maybe make an argument for a tight end, but I'm going to go ahead and Hooker here. I'm going to go with the quarterback. He's got the mobile upside. We love the rushing upside. This is really just a situation where I like to throw darts in the second round at quarterback and hope that they have the starting gig the second year of their career, and then you just trade them away. Or in this case, he has the rushing upside that we look for, like what we saw to like a Jalen Hurts, and maybe something can come of it. So that's the direction I'm going there.
I like it.
All right. This is for JJ's column. All right, Pat, you are on the clock with pick 18. I have a feeling I'm going to have to adjust your column after this selection.
Well, it's helpful that I told you how. I'm going to go with a guy I was terrified JJ was going to pick, the guy we hyped yesterday, Izzy Abanikanda.
There we go.
Kanda, yeah.
Wow.
Dude,
I could have
he's
gone back
officially-
to back Pitt there. Man, I really screwed that up.
I was sure you were going to take him. I was sure because he's officially the most athletic running back in this class now. Rastop Football's got him as the top guy in the class with his RAS score. I think he jumped up into day 2 with the performance he just put in at his pro day. And my issue with this class is like there's not a lot of clarity on the guys who are going to be going past Zach Charbonnet. Well, I think now we have a little bit of clarity that he's not going to be falling like super late. And he's got a really nice profile overall. He was like, if you watch him, he gets up to speed quickly. He's clearly very fast, as we saw today. He looks like kind of Raheem Mostert. He's like a one-cut runner. I think him landing in like a spot like Miami or something, he could take that backfield over. He also has enough receiving juice. He's Charbonnet-esque that way. He had 0.99 yards per route run over his career. That's actually slightly better than Charbonnet in a range where you see guys kind of go one way or the other as receivers. Sometimes they'll won't do much. Other times they'll be like 3 down backs. So it's like, I think a pretty high upside profile given how athletic he is. And now draft capital on the rise.
I like it. Gretch, you are up here. Pick 19, wrapping back in the second round.
I'm trying to watch Tank Bigsby highlights right now because I'm going to take Tank Bigsby. I didn't even see any of the
That's
highlights
a good first 10 seconds.
I didn't even
Just
see
listed
any
his
of them.
name and weight.
He's no, so I did have him kind of high on my list when I was looking through all of the smarter people than me that are on the show's work earlier, because he did catch some passes right, and he's bigger. Like a lot of the other backs that are going, Devin A-Chain, JJ, you made some really strong cases against him just based on weight, and I agree with him that like you're probably not like what are you getting if you're right there? I don't love that. Bigsby's a 210-pound back. He's got bigger backs in his statistical profile. And JJ, I think you made a case that his best season reception share was pretty strong and put him in a good group. That, like, all right, big backs that catch passes. Charles Sims model, right? I mean, Charles Sims is on his comparables on your chart. We have 2 Charles Sims comps on my roster. Let's go.
I should have taken him. Honestly, I just wanted to get cute with the quarterback, but he profiles really strongly to DeMarco Murray in the old model there. So I do like me some Tank Bigsby.
Nice.
All right, Pat, you are back on the clock.
Oh man.
The chat says you're just having a disastrous draft. Nick Young, heat check vibes from Pat on this draft, turning around, symboling the 3 while it bricks. You got to win the people back over with this selection.
Come on, guys. It's a superflex draft, and I have 2 quarterbacks. It can't be that bad.
Yeah,
it's a high.
But what's the saying going in the NFL? If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. I think that's the same for you right now, Pat. All right, what's he gonna be?
All right, let me just check the old rankings here.
Will Levis will get some tight end premium points, possibly.
I'm going to go with I don't like this pick because it's not that fun, but I'm going to go with Devin A-Chain.
Okay, let's go.
He's probably going to be a second-round pick. He's going to be a second-round pick. And he's like, yeah, he's really tiny. He's like 188 pounds, but he is fast, and he was very productive. And he's a guy, like, when I tried to find comps, I basically couldn't find any. He doesn't comp to like anybody, but I think maybe that's good, because he's 188 pounds and we're trying to have him do something that basically no one else did.
It can't be as good as competent Charles Sims.
It's not as good as competent Charles Sims, but he doesn't look very much like the many other small running backs who've done nothing in the NFL. So that's good, but it isn't good that he's so small. So I feel like I'm getting the discount at this point, and I'll take it.
All right. I'll allow it. Ron, your backup, you selected 2 running backs with the franchise on the back half of the board. You took Bryce Young with this franchise. What do you got on tap?
Let me get Darnell Washington.
Oh, you got sniped.
I'm glad it's the other way around this time.
Yeah, go for it.
But I've been wanting to talk about Darnell Washington. Like, I can just gush about Darnell Washington. He's massive. He's like 6'6", like 265 pounds. Like he could play tackle if he wanted to. And I get that that's kind of the drawback, right? Like people think, okay, he's going to do a lot of run blocking. And for sure, that is a concern that he could do a lot of run blocking. But there's a lot of upside too. Like he was on Georgia. They ran the ball a lot. They would just beat the crap out of everybody. Like it's not like they needed Darnell Washington to go out there and make a play. He has very natural hands. He had like a one-handed grab at the combine. I think he did like some other cool stuff at the pro day. He has hands. And like we see some guys come in where they are run blockers. Like I think I had a stat. George Kittle blocked, like he only was out like in 60% of the routes like his final year at Iowa. I know that that's like a very like obscure comp, but like Noah Fant was there and they used him as a run blocker, and he kind of, yes, he was a run blocker in the NFL, but you can still be an elite fantasy tight end while also being an elite run blocker. Like he'll just be asked to be out there more often. Of course, we want him to run routes, but I don't think it's as much of an indictment on him as others might think. And the big thing that I love with Darnell Washington is that his athleticism actually shows up. Like Gesicki ran and killed the combine. His yards per reception in college was 11.5, which is like nothing. Darnell Washington's yards per reception, career yards per reception, 17.2, which is like Gronk was 16, Andrews was 15.8. And you have a lot of guys in this class who aren't big play guys. Like Mayers was 11.7. So you have a guy who's actually realizing that crazy relative athletic score with massive plays. I think that he can develop as a pass catcher to the point where he would be valuable in fantasy. I liked Mayer in my first pick as well, but I felt like there's 4 tight ends that have like the same tier in this draft class, so I'm fine just waiting on tight end till like this 2-3 turn area. Roll the clip.
So what? Is Darnell Washington available? Put Darnell Washington in the queue. This guy, you guys are gonna like him. This dude is massive.
Oh shit. This dude is fucking massive.
Every successful person has to do, including you. Every successful person in this world has jumped.
Electric pick, Ron. Way to set up that clip too. I didn't know you even knew we had that clip, and you just kind of organically teed us up. Yes, we were all very hype. We do, in fact, have a Darnell Washington clip around here. Blair, you're on the clock for pick 22.
All right, gotta avoid getting sniped on a tight end, so I'll take Dalton Kincaid.
Wow. Okay, right. Let's go.
I figured you'd have like 3 more receivers to mix in here who have big hands.
Well, Kincaid is like 10 1/4, right?
Okay. So his hands are, yeah, I knew that. Yeah, that's definitely right. Yeah.
Anything to say about Kincaid? I feel like he's kind of the forgotten tight end right now just because he didn't run and do anything at the combine. How are you feeling about his draft capital?
I mean, the people are still talking about him in the first round, right? So, yeah, he's basically as productive as Mayer and arguably had a better combine than Mayer, even though he didn't run.
Yeah. Does anyone else have because it doesn't seem like there's really a consensus right now for how people are sorting the tight ends. Because I think I saw Anthony Amico in his mock draft today had like Darnell Washington going top 15 to the Packers. It just seems like everyone's all over the board. Does anyone have like strong takes on how to rank these guys?
No, it's just a great class. I mean, there's guys. I finally started like working with, I'm going to say it again, a tight end model this offseason. And this class has more 80th percentile or above players by far than any other class since 2015. I mean, it's crazy how deep it is. I mean, you can get to like a Sam Laporta, a Kraft, or a Zach Kuntz. I mean, there are really, really good tight ends everywhere, which is, you can get these guys in the second round in a tight end premium. That's fine. But I think in a normal league, a normal tight end league, you can wait till the third and get very, very good talent and not have to worry about, using one of those picks on and having that opportunity cost and not getting a running back or wide receiver.
And I think the important thing to note with the tight ends too is you probably saw it. Like my model as well. I was working with tight ends. And you'll see, like, dude, the best tight end prospects ever in your model are bad. Like Noah Fant should have been great. Like as much as Michael Mayer is good and he looks amazing, to me they're all in this huge tier. So instead of, like, I know Mayer's the consensus, like he's like a back end first round. I'd rather just wait. Like we really don't know. Hawkinson was like, if you look at top 10 draft picks, like it's Hawkinson, it's Eric Ebron, like looking through tight end prospects.
Don't say Kyle Pitts.
I was about to say, like, it almost made me question, like, Kyle Pitts. Like, there's no sure things at tight end, man. Like, if there was, OJ Howard would be sick. Like, it's insane how it's a crapshoot. Like, all of the elite tight ends right now, too. Everybody that has those great seasons, it's what, like Kittle, Kelsey. None of these guys are drafted in the first round. Darren Waller, like, all of these guys are outside the first round. So I'm not saying that Mayer can't be the best tight end in this class. I'm just saying it's not as obvious with tight ends, I guess.
All right, man, I get it. I sniped you on Quentin Johnson. You're shit. All right, man, you stole my thunder because both of you guys. I think I'm just gonna keep this tight end train going, man. I'm keeping it going. I mean, Sam Laporta, come on down.
All right.
I've seen the Raz charts. I mean, this guy torched everything. He seems like just as good of a candidate as any of these guys to emerge as the top tight end in the class. Anyone want to speak on what a great selection this is?
I like it a lot. He's not going to get the draft capital, and he's going later, and like so, kind of playing like the market game. You should probably wait until these first 3 tight ends are off the board. But he's a really strong after catch producer, and at tight end, I think you're just looking for guys who have like receiving skills of some kind. So that, like, I really liked Dulcich last year because he had the ability to win downfield, and Laporta doesn't do that so much, but he wins after the catch. And so I'm kind of excited about him emerging probably more from, like, he could be more of a 3rd round pick. And he might have to like earn his way a little bit more, but I think he's a pretty strong bet.
All right, JJ, you get to close us out. Ship Chasing's Dynasty mock draft, Mr. Irrelevant. Hopefully we'll go on to have a Brock Purdy-esque career in this hypothetical landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get weird with it because it's the last pick, right? Like, I got to get a little weird with it. I'm going to go with my favorite sleeper at wide receiver this year, and that is one Jaden Reed. He's climbing up mock draft boards a little bit. I think he could be a day 2 pick at this point. But he has a really interesting profile. He started at Western Michigan, and when he was at Western Michigan as a freshman, he outproduced D. Eskridge when he was. I mean, D. Eskridge was about 45 years old as a junior at the time. But he outproduced D. Eskridge, and then he transfers to Michigan State. When he transferred to Michigan State, Sky Moore entered the picture at Western Michigan. And if you look at Sky Moore's freshman season versus Jaden Reed's freshman season, Reed actually outperformed Sky Moore in yards per team pass attempt. And then he went on to Michigan State, had a good production profile there for the most part. He got some work in on the ground as a punt and kick returner. And then I looked at my model once again, and I looked at some comps, and one of his top 3 comps was Stephon Diggs. And so I all of a sudden very, very into Jaden Reed. So he's been my go-to, sleeper wide receiver. You don't have to take him here at this point. He's like 4th rounder, if that, in mock drafts in the fantasy world, but I think he's going to rise quite a bit over the next month.
JJ, there's a lot of respect being shown here because I don't know if you know the rules around here, but people have been booted off the show for less than what you just said about Sky Moore. Pete was willing to let you go there a little bit.
I thought I was paying some respect here to Sky Moore.
Do you guys remember? I'm the one. Anytime we're on a draft now, you guys want to draft Sky Moore, and I'm the voice of reason here. I'm out. So I was on.
He immediately capitulated on Sky Moore. He no longer thinks he has the sickest fucking name for a wide receiver he's ever heard.
If someone wants to wax poetic about JJ Taylor, I'll play that fucking clip so fast it'll make your head spin.
No. I don't have
this is a 3rd time's a charm situation for Western Michigan wide receivers going in round 2. Let's watch it work out.
Well, and I believe when Reeves came on, he gave a little love to Jaden Reed. He also said that he predicts that Sean over at RotoViz is going to love Reed. Blair, any inside information? Has Sean whispered anything in your ear about Jaden Reed?
I haven't heard anything about Jaden Reed. I'm looking at Sean's rankings now, actually. and I don't even see his name in the top 50. So maybe,
no.
maybe they're not. Maybe these aren't the real rankings. Maybe he's got a secret set.
To be fair, like I said, Reed in these mocks is like not even going in in the top 4 rounds. I just had to have a little fun with the last pick and pour some out for Sky Moore all while doing it.
No, we appreciate that. For the audio listeners, I'm going to recap this draft real quick for you. Bijan Robinson, AR-15 bitches, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, JSN, Will Levis, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson, Zach Charbonnet, Jalin Hyatt, Kosh Downs, Zay Flowers, Marvin Mims, Sean Tucker, Michael Mayer, Hendon Hooker, Izzy Abanda, Tank, A-Chain, Darnell Washington, Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta, Jaden Reed. Fellas, we did it. A 2-round Dynasty Superflex tight end premium mock draft. Ron, it was great chopping it up with you, man. It's been way too long, and everybody needs to check out your YouTube channel. What kind of stuff do you got going on over there these days?
Thanks for having me on. Channel, just chopping it up, rookie stuff. Ron Stewart's the channel, so you can just type in Ron Stewart and I'll show up. Finally at the spot now where Rod Stewart doesn't show up and just flood the search results. But yeah, we're just talking rookie stuff. We'll see if we can go back to back on getting the most accurate mock draft. I'm sure I'll get bumped. It was a 3-way tie, so I barely won last year. But yeah, so that's what I have going on there. I'll say thanks for having me on. Like, this is pretty cool. Like, I'm 21. I grew up like listening to JJ's podcast, and I reference all of you guys' work all the time. So really cool to be here. Thanks for having me on.
For sure. And Ron, like you said, has an awesome YouTube channel. I have it tagged down below. So if you're in the show description, you can just click Ron's name. It'll take you right over there.
I just searched for you on YouTube and I got Rod Stewart.
No.
Oh, no.
Why should I change my name? He's the one who sucks.
Back to square one. Blair, what do you guys going on over at RotoViz? I was scoping out. You got volume 2 of the draft guide. What else are you working on?
Yeah, volume 2 of the draft guide is out. We got a lot of rookie content coming up over the next month, so watch out for that. I know Dave Cabin published his breakaway rush scores this morning that came out, and I also have my backfield dominator ratings up on the site today, so definitely some good stuff to get you going with running back evaluation today, and we'll have a lot more coming up over the next few weeks.
Love it. JJ, what's going on over at Late Round QB? Of course, we have we got the draft guide, the prospect guide. What else?
Yeah, prospect guide. I got my podcast, the Late Round Fantasy Football Podcast. But the draft guide's been, the prospect guide's been the thing that has sort of been my baby over the last couple months. You can check all of that out over on lateround.com.
Awesome. We'll get that link down below as well. Gretch, anything in your neck of the woods right now?
I had jury duty this week, but I got off.
Wow.
I went home right away Monday. Didn't have to go back Tuesday and Wednesday.
Wow.
I got a call after this to find out if I have to go tomorrow. So yeah, that's
judicial process 101. All right. Pat, Legendary Upside, cranking out pods, articles.
Yes.
What's on tap?
Just launched the podcast today with the episode with JJ that we were talking about earlier. So check that out wherever you listen to podcasts. And yeah, legendaryupside.com, still running a 30-day trial. And if you sign up for the yearly version of that, I'll also add $30 off your first year. So go sign up risk-free. There's lots of good content on there. Rookie stuff, best ball stuff, rookie rankings that I just updated right before this show. So they're very, very fresh.
Awesome. Say model one more time. Model. Lots of models. I feel model envy right now. I believe I'm the only person on the panel without a model. I will be doing a best ball stream tomorrow on the Fantasy Life YouTube with Dwayne McFarland. We're going to hop in a draft. I believe he has a little board draft as the big board, as Donovan points out, only 250 entries left in that contest. Absolutely insane that a contest that was the same size as the first Best Ball Mania is about to fill weeks before the NFL draft.
Before the end of March. Before the end of March.
Sick.
Like easily. Not even close. It wasn't even close.
I appreciate all of you guys in the chat. Thank you for not, Monday morning quarterbacking my Google Sheet skills. You can always join us in the Ship Chasing Discord if you guys become YouTube members. I also did a VIP stream for YouTube members on Friday night. Just me and Liam. We went 2 hours talking best ball, a bunch of fun stuff. And
that was good. That was a good stream.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you guys are YouTube members, you can find that under the membership tab. But it was great chopping it up with Ron, Blair, and JJ. We'll see what we have in store for you guys next week. Have a great week. Good luck in all your mock drafts out there. Don't forget, it is Tight End Premium. See you next time.